Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Today is Tuesday, August 6th. What does that mean?
Election day.
Election day, absolutely. And I see a lot of I voted stickers out there, so that's great. We even have a candidate amongst our midst, and so thank you, Justin, for joining us on Election Day. I'm Cindy Stein, and I serve on the statewide CERF board. And most everyone in the room and in the audience are members of CERF. And so I thought I would bring to you today just a brief update coming from the CERF board and my participation with the CERF board. I'm going to give you a few facts and figures again. So I wanted to kind of give you a brief update on some of the things that are happening with CERF. And CERF does a good job of managing your investments because this is your retirement, okay? So they take great responsibility of protecting your assets. The diversity of those investments are through equities, fixed income, and real assets. And when we say real assets, everything's a real assets, but we're talking about property and that kind of thing. The current investment balance for CERF is just under 800 million. And since the inception of the CERF fund, the average return has been 8.66. So Justin, does that seem to be a pretty decent return for the investment?
I wish I could get those kind of returns.
That's not a bad return. Now, how many remember when CERF was inception, when this inception was? 1994, okay? So it's a relatively newer fund, okay? Currently, CERF is funded at 81%, and you're like, oh, that's not 100%. Well, a lot of funds aren't funded at 100%, okay? But being a relatively new fund at 81%, that's pretty good, okay? To give you an example of, for comparison purposes, we're also a loggers county, and Greene County has been a member of a loggers county since 1972, okay, so a bit longer. And our funded ratio for Greene County, okay, that's Greene County funded ratio, for the police rate, for the police department, which is our sheriff's department, it's just under 90% funded, okay? Yet that fund has been in existence considerably longer. The general population, which most of our employees fall under the general population, it's funded at 103%, okay? So the rates that are assigned to Greene County for loggers is based on how funded that is, okay? And that's why currently the police rate is higher than the general population rate, because the general population is funded at 103%, where the police is just slightly under 90%, okay? Okay. As many of you know, 2022 was a very difficult investment year, not unique to CERF or any other fund. 2023 had quite the recovery, and so we're not quite pre-2022 rates, but we're nearly fully recovered, okay? CERF employees are vested at 8 years. So the contributions that you make to CERF are yours, okay? If you leave the county before 8 years, then that money gets refunded to you, okay? If you make the vesting point, then you start accruing retirement benefits, okay? And as the slide indicates, you can retire at 62. And you can also retire early at 55 at a reduced rate. And again, these are general population. The police is slightly lower than that. Okay? CERF currently has over 12,000 active participants statewide, and about 7,000 pension payments are made each month. And the average payment is $613. Okay. CERF paid out approximately $48 million in retirement benefits, and this grows about 8% annually. So if what the board is paying out in benefits is averaging about 8% annually, guess what we need to earn in investments? Above 8% in order to keep up with it. Okay. COLA is provided annually, and the statute indicates that it's 1% or the CPI, whichever is lower. Okay. At the board meeting in March, the board did authorize the 1% COLA that goes into effect in July, which went into effect in July. Okay, this is my favorite slide of the whole presentation because it really tells the story. It gives you an aha. Okay. So when you think about the fund as a whole and you look at where the returns are, it's interesting to note that 44% of the fund is made up of investment income. Okay. 38% are fees that are collected by the recorder, the collector, the fees that go into those CERF funds. 18% is employee contribution. Now, before this morning, did anybody have an idea that the lowest participant would be the employee contribution? Yeah, that just doesn't normally come to mind first. But what it does say is that management of the fund is critically important, okay? And that we have high reliance on the fees that are collected, okay? Any questions on that distribution of how the fund is made up? As many of you are aware, there was a lot of legislation filed this year and last year talking about eliminating property taxes and various changes, which all sounds great on the surface. It's really good on the surface. Nobody wants to pay taxes. However, if we go back to that previous graph, 38% of that fund is made up of those fees. Okay. So if we eliminate property taxes and thereby fees that are associated with it, excuse me, then 38% of our funding goes away with nothing to replace it. Okay. So we're constantly on the defense, if you will, on legislative action that might be taken. Okay, so keep that in mind as you kind of support or probably don't support, if you're a county employee, the reduction or elimination of property taxes, because there goes part of your return. So right now, the board is taking the responsibility of investments very seriously, and we rely heavily on our consultants that consult with us in these matters. We keep a diverse portfolio, and we are investing in companies and pools that represent Green County best. Okay, we're a very conservative fund, but we also have to make some returns. Okay, this is the fun part of CERF. Is everybody ready for the fun part of CERF? Okay, there's a matching element. Okay, so the statute allows for 50 cents on every dollar up to 6% to be a matching component. Now, after the downturn of 2022 and the investment, the board elected to back that off a bit and awarded 50 cents up to 4%. Okay, still a great return on your money because it's a match. Okay, the board elected in March to continue that for another year at the advice of the investment council. Even though we had recovered a lot from 22, we hadn't recovered completely, and they recommended the match stay at 50 cents up to 4%. So there's not a lot of places where you can put your money where you're earning money and you're getting a match for those earnings. So it's a great way to invest. Okay. Now, effective January 1st of 2024, there was a new law called 2022 Secure Act, and it required CERF to now offer a Roth component. Okay, you're like, well, what's a Roth? Okay, so your CERF contributions that you would make currently, and if you want to contribute to the 457 plan and get the match, those are pre-tax. Okay, so you don't pay tax on it now, you pay tax when you take it out, okay, when you retire. Now there is an element called Roth that would be post-tax. Okay, so you would pay tax on it now, but not pay tax on it when you take it out. Well, who wants to pay taxes now when you can pay taxes later? Okay. Well, that's the old mantra, and I would attest to that. But things have changed. Things have changed a bit. And so each individual person will need to look at their tax situation and their life situation to determine whether it's better to pay taxes now or pay taxes later. The current tax cuts that we are under, federal tax cuts that we are under, are due to expire in 2025. Okay, so left unattended, the rates would fall back to the old rates. Well, many of us don't even remember those. So it would be quite a shock if we were paying taxes now at a higher rate because we elected to have them pre-tax versus post-tax. There's a lot of things to consider with that. So take your own personal situation into consideration. One of the nice things too is that because Green County is fortunate enough to have two retirement systems, loggers and CERF, and many would be eligible for Social Security as well. A lot of the retirees can retire at a similar rate than what they're making as their work. So, you know, when you balance all that, that's when you consider whether that needs to be pre-tax or post-tax. Now, I'd like to do a little bit of Green County by the numbers. This is as of the July 20th payroll. And CERF 457 had 276 employees contributing for a total of 42,000 in that pay period. And to date, 574,000. So that's really nice. We've got a lot of employees taking advantage of that. And then for the 457, which is new, we've got 15 employees participating at about 2,800 a pay period and 15,000 today. So because Roth is relatively new, a lot of people don't know about it. A lot of people are still kind of figuring out, is that right for them? You know, but overall, we've got nearly 300 employees participating in that 457, which is great because that's the match component. That's where everybody gets a real boost, a real bonus. Now, some of you might wonder, what does it take to serve on the CERF board? Okay. a lot of boards, you sign up and you go to meetings and you vote and you go home. Right? The CERF board is a little bit different. The education required to just serve on the board is extensive. As a matter of fact, before I even got on the board, I had all this continuing education that was required. Now, I'm a big proponent of continuing education, so it's pretty much in my genes and my DNA. So for me, it was not difficult or challenging, but it takes quite a bit of education to even serve. Okay. The reason being is we're there protecting your investment. That's your retirement. We don't want decisions to be made lightly. We don't want decisions to be made in haste. You know, we're in it for the long game. This is not a short-term investment. This is the long game. This is somebody's future. This is somebody's retirement. Okay. So each year we're required to get 6 hours of continuing education. And the continuing education occurred in July. You can get it at other means, but the Missouri Association of Public Employees Retirement System hosts an annual training for us. And I'm going to kind of read off a few of the topics to show you how in depth that gets in. You try not to go to sleep or anything because it really was terrific. There is asset allocation. We talked about that at one of the beginning slides. There's an actuarial panel. Fiduciary responsibility. What is the responsibility of the board? What is their fiduciary responsibility to the members? There's an economic outlook, real estate beyond traditional types, benchmarking operations, pension trends, ethics. So you kind of get the theme there, right? We're really looking at what is going to benefit our members in the safest, most effective way possible. Okay. So the board is made up of a elected member from each county association, county treasurers, county clerks, county auditors. Each member has a representative. And then there's 2 governor appointment positions, which have not been appointed for quite some time. So right now, it's just the elected members from the association. So we're representing all of you. I know I'm cutting my time a little short. Is there any questions on anything regarding CERF or representation on the board? Yes, Mark. Each association has a member plus 2. So is that 9 plus 2 is 11? Yes.
How many full-time employees does the CERF organization?
That's a good question. The CERF organization as a whole, I don't know the exact number of employees, but it's probably below 20. They have one of their biggest departments is they have 3 IT specialists. Then they have account managers that manage all the accounts for all the counties. And so we have an account manager, and then they have some supervisors, and they have a CPA on staff, and then the director. So it'd be under 20.
What do you guys want to make in-house or that?
It's mostly outsourced with the oversight of an investment manager within the CERF team, and then with the oversight of the board. But we actually interview those managers quite extensively before they're hired, to make sure that their vision aligns with what the executive board feels that it should. So I've been involved in a couple of those already in my short term, and it's pretty extensive. Yes.
Cindy, just curious, the numbers you showed as far as the participation with our own employees in the 457 plan. You know, I'm curious, is there any trend? Is that a higher number than it's been in the past? Did we used to have higher participation than that? Or is it about saying that it's always been?
Yeah, Adam, that's a good question, asking about the level of participation within Green County. We actually are seeing a trend upward. I think as our employees get better educated about the 457, most of our employees are already contributing 4% of their salary, okay? But when they understand that they can contribute more and get that match portion, you know, they see that as a win-win. So we are seeing trends upward for that. Yeah, I would say this is probably, this participant is probably high for us. And I think that goes into kind of the education of letting people understand what it's about, what it needs to be, bringing education to our employees. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so on that slide where it showed the number of active participants, like 12,000 something,
Uh-huh.
is that active employees plus retirees or just active?
That is active employees.
Okay.
Because the retirees are no longer active, they're receiving a benefit. So that's a different category, actually. I don't know if any of you have been on the CERF website, but on the CERF website, they do have a link to all their investments, and they do a quarterly report on those investments, and so that's open to you as a member to review that. Alan, why don't I send that link out when we send out the information, and I'll send the link out to that report because it's got great information. Didn't have enough time today to go through that report, but it's got a lot of good information about where that investments are, whether it's.
How much of your time is
How much of my time, that's hard to gauge. I consider myself a lifetime learner, so I'm constantly learning and constantly re-educating. So it doesn't seem like time invested because it's just learning something new and making sure I'm up to date. Admittedly, when we had our conference in July, I pulled down all the material. I reviewed everything beforehand, so I'd be familiar with it. They make all the tools available to you, and I'm, one of those board members that reads everything, before I go to the meeting, so I'm well prepared. But, it's hard to gauge how much time because it's just really investment in lifetime learning. Yes, Justin.
Do you travel to like monthly or quarterly board meetings, or is that done virtually?
Justin, that's a good question. We're required by statute to meet quarterly. Typically, the meetings are in Jefferson City. They do make a virtual option. Thus far, I've gone to everyone personally. The board meeting in September, I have a conflict with another conference, so I won't be able to attend, but virtual meetings are available. But I really do try to attend in person just because the content is so important that I want to be sure that I'm understanding it correctly and then I'm responding appropriately. Yes.
question about the COLA that CERF applies for those that are drawing? Is that something that's revisited on an annual basis, or is that something, are those set for a specified period of time? I didn't know how often that was subject to potentially changing.
Right. So Adam was asking the question of how frequently the COLAs are set. The COLAs are set annually, okay? And so they're typically set at the March board meeting to be effective July, okay? And so, left unattended, typically that COLA is going to be 1%. It could be something other than that, but typically it's going to be 1% and it's done annually for those retiree benefits. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your attention to the subject, and if you have any follow-up questions or your team has follow-up questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you.